Evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to welcome you out to the American Fork City Council regular session on this May 11th of the year 2021. The agenda we will follow as outlined. It has been posted in various places for the public to view and to access, and we will follow the agenda as outlined. We'll begin with a Pledge of Allegiance, and then it will be followed up by an invocation by Councilmember Carroll, after which I will conduct the roll call. If everybody please stand. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for this day. We're grateful for all Thou hast given to us. We're grateful that we can meet here today. Please bless us that we will be able to make decisions with congeniality and with wisdom. Please bless us to forever be grateful for the opportunities that we have been given. And in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thank you for that report. All right, Councilmember Hunter.
Present.
Councilmember Shelton.
Here.
Councilmember Barnes.
Here.
Councilmember Carroll.
Here.
Councilmember Taylor.
Here.
Okay, item number 2 is public comment period. If anybody present would like to address the city council, mayor, or senior staff, we'd invite you to come forward at this time. Please state your name, and we would ask you to keep your comments brief, about 2 to 3 minutes. We'll now open this up to public comment. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period, and we'll move on to item number 3, our city administrator's report. David Bunker.
Mayor, I don't have anything to report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item number 4, council reports. I will start with Councilmember Taylor because I want to give Councilmember Hunter time to think tonight.
I can do nothing to give Councilmember Hunter any additional time. I have nothing to report.
All right, Councilmember Carroll.
The only thing I wanted to report was that the chamber is hosting the Memorial Day golf tournament on what month are we in? May 28th. Of course, that'll be at Fox Hollow. So if you want to attend or participate in any way, please do that. And it's in honor of our veterans and armed services, and we donate some of the money for those causes. And it's always a really big tournament, and lots of people come out to celebrate.
Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Barnes.
Just a reminder about the Memorial Day program on the 31st. It will be on the city website, pre-recorded, so take some time that day and think about those blessings and freedoms that we enjoy and those who made and continue to make them possible. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Shelton.
Thanks, Mayor. Just shot an email out to all of you earlier this week about the cameras at North Point that they put up. Hopefully we can get that on our webpage. I don't know if that's best, if we've already got that up there or looking at it, but that's one request they've had to try to get it out there, is have a link to that so people could be able to see how busy the dump is without having to drive out there. I believe it's on North Point's site already, but they thought it'd be nice and easy to have that, and it works on both mobile devices and non-mobile devices. So that's all I had to report, Mayor.
Thank you. Could save yourself a lot of time by looking at that first. Councilmember Hunter.
I don't know what I would normally say other than just thank you to the staff for the orientation, getting my feet wet. There's been a lot of people giving me some advice, council members as well, so thank you. Look forward to working with everyone.
Wonderful. Okay, item number 5 is the mayor's report. I always go back on my calendar to see what happened in the last 2 weeks, and I just wanted to report that was last week, that due to our public safety, our chiefs, we called a meeting with all the ecclesiastical leaders. We invited all to attend on was it Thursday evening? No, it was Tuesday evening. Okay. And it was a really productive meeting, in my opinion, that we had a lot of leaders and any supportive staff, anybody that they wanted to invite in any of their congregations that attended that. And it was a good refresher on who was prepared as far as communication. And the chief and his staff did a wonderful job at orienting new people. And we quickly kind of learned where our weak points are, where our strong points are, is in the ability to communicate with our entire city at any one given time through different modes of communication. That was followed up the next day with a mock drill of the EOC. I thought that was very productive. It was a mock drill of a flood, a major flood incident with 2 cities. And I think we all learned from that. I hope that we never have to reuse it, but if we ever do, we're one step closer to being better. So thanks for organizing that. And that is the mayor's report. Item number, now we'll move on to the common consent agenda, consisting of the 5 items before you. I'll ask Tara Lynn, has there been any noted changes to the minutes?
No, very much.
Okay. Is there any questions that council has for staff?
Just one comment, if I may. I didn't see they were in the computer at all until this afternoon. I think they were mailed out late last night, the minutes anyway. And just commented, it'd be nice to get those just a little sooner for some of us that don't live by the computer and don't check it regularly. Time I found them, I didn't have time to look at them. So I'm going to abstain from the approval of the 2 sets of minutes when it comes time to vote on those. But
Okay.
support everything else.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Thank you. If not, I'd entertain a motion. Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Taylor,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Carroll. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Barnes?
Aye, with abstaining on number 1 and number 2.
Okay. My sheet doesn't give me that, but I just wrote it in. Okay, no, I made note of that, and so will the public record. Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter?
I'm not sure how to vote on this, only because I probably need to abstain because I wasn't a member of 13.
Okay, you could follow the same
I would do a
motion.
similar thing. I would move to, or aye, with the abstaining on number 1 and number 2.
Okay. I'll make a note of that. Well, we gotta have a sheet, Carolyn. Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Okay.
Apologize for making that.
No, that's okay. All right. We'll now move on to action items. Item number 1 is a review and action on a reimbursement agreement for 500 East and 1700 South with Phelan Lakeside LLC. We have Scott here. I always forget until it's one item into it, but I think it's for the public record. I just note that the staff prepares packets in large part. Maybe we missed some minutes this week until just the last minute, but we have packets that are presented by the end of the week so that the council has time to digest them, look at them, ask questions, etc. So sometimes there's no questions because they've already been asked. So anyway, item number 1, is there any questions that anybody has concerning this reimbursement agreement with Phelan?
Mayor, I'd move to approve the reimbursement agreement with Phelan Lakeland LLC for an amount no greater than $940,038 for system improvements along 500 East and 1700 South.
Okay. A motion by Councilmember Taylor,
Oh, second.
second by Councilmember Carroll. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Hunter?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 2 is a review and action on a development agreement with Brad Reynolds for Meadows at American Fork Phase 2. Again, I would have Scott or Sherilyn answer these questions if there be any.
I will move to approve the agreement with Lakeview Meadows South LLC, Lakeview Meadows LLC, and Brad Reynolds Construction Inc. enabling development of Meadows at American Fork Phase 2, and the construction of certain infrastructures defined in the attached proposed agreement.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Carroll, second by Councilmember Barnes. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Item number 3 is a review and action on an ordinance adopting an amendment to section 17.7.507.5.6 of the American Fork City Municipal Code regarding building primary orientation. Is there any questions?
I do have a question on this one, sorry, did I cut someone off?
Nope, you're fine.
Okay. I had called Adam, but I forgot to call you back, so I'm asking it now. What is the motivation for this? Have we had a problem with it in the past? Is this a request from the developer at all?
No, this is a staff recommended change. This really just broadens the ability for developments to site buildings. It's more in line with what we allow in the TOD code. So as it was quite restrictive as we looked at it, where it could only front a street. But then when you have multi-structure, multi-family units, it's not feasible for all of them to front a street when you have, multiple acres and multiple buildings. And so we opened it up to drive aisles, open spaces, common areas, private drives, and whatnot. And so, again, it is in line more of what we have in the TOD and broadens that perspective of what they can do.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I'd move to approve the ordinance adopting an amendment to section 17.7.507.F.6 of the American Fork Point City Point Municipal Code regarding the primary orientation. Did I slip those in? That might have just been repetitive nature there. It could be
Okay.
my Tourette's.
Have a very pointed motion by Councilmember Taylor,
Your turn.
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Carroll. Any discussion on the motion?
Just a comment, I'm glad to see that you're proactive and ahead and working on this. As I read through it, I thought, this is a great idea to make sure the code is flexible and workable for new developments without destroying all the old stuff.
All right, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
All right, item number 4A. Is a review and action on the final plat of Autumn Crest Phase 1, Plat E subdivision located in the vicinity of 930 East, 1040 North in the R1 9000 residential zone. Again, this would be, any questions for Adam?
Mayor, I'd move to approve the final plat of Autumn Crest, Phase 1, Plat E subdivision located in the vicinity of 930 East, 1040 North in the R1 9000 residential zone, and to authorize the mayor and the city council to sign the plat and accept the dedications with instructions to the city recorder to withhold recording of the plat subject to all conditions identified in the public record associated with the Planning Commission April 21, 2021 Planning Commission meeting.
Okay. I have a motion by Councilmember Taylor,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Shelton. Any discussion on the motion?
Just sometimes it's interesting seeing them go full cycle. Remember lots of meetings with Ross and Wayne on this property and involved in the church and all sorts of stuff. So it's kind of nice to see it get fully developed or getting close to being fully developed.
All right, got a motion and a second, and I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Barnes,
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll,
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter,
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Item number 5 is a review and action on approval of the city's fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022 tentative budget. We will have, subsequently, we'll have additional work sessions on this. Maybe I'm going to ask Anna if you'd just come forward and just maybe give us what you, next steps. I think we all know what the tentative budget is. But maybe just for the clarification for the public that might be listening or archive, just maybe give us a.
Thank you,
a
Mayor. Yes, the state requires us to adopt a tentative budget in the first council meeting of May. So this is brought before you. The general fund is balanced at $27.3 million with revenues equaling expenditures. And this has been a culmination of 5 months of budget process. We've had several work sessions. We've met with departments. We've had a budget retreat in February, as you know, and then several workshops throughout March and April. So we will be bringing back the budget book for review in the June 1st work session. And then we are proposing to adopt a final budget for the June 22nd council meeting. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, questions, maybe more of just some discussion items. As I got a chance to look through here, there's just 6 areas that I thought I'd love to have some discussion on. Usually we pass the tentative budget and we get into things, and it's almost as if June's right on top of us because it's almost a month away to passing. So I thought it'd be good to give feedback, and if we want to have discussion about them, great. Maybe that helps staff in preparing for our next work session. The first one that came up was just as we look back at that graph where we had expenses and revenues and kind of our 10-year track record where our expenses have exceeded our revenues on our general fund, thinking how we can try to increase that revenue and make good use of that. And part of that came back to the park tax. And this is the first time we've actually had more money than applications that were out there. I didn't know if it was the city's intent to go in and request certain things that could be paid out of the general fund that would free up money for other things that we could spend in the general fund. For instance, the playground equipment, the courts at the junior high, things of that nature that we could be able to do. And I think that'd be important to look at and think about as we're doing our budget if we're going to free up some of that general fund money. I didn't know if the council had any ideas on that. Didn't know if the staff had plans of putting in applications that direction. That's something that as one council member I'd love to see us look at. Any thoughts from anybody? Done? Okay, all right. Next one is recreation. I know we talked about completing Art Die and trying to monetize that a little bit. I know I asked that during the questions of the fee schedule. That's something I would really like to see us put back into the budget as some kind of revenue stream that we would use from renting out our facilities. I don't know if this is true, and I haven't had a chance to ask Derek or not. I don't know if he's here or not tonight. But, you know, I hear that the Beehive Ball Field and JC are no longer being used because Art Die is being used now for the baseball fields. And so didn't know if there's a way of leasing those out or bringing tournaments in. Kind of what is the game plan now that Art Die is going to be complete this year that we can really drive revenue? And part of that would be is also drive park tax, right? And part of it was thinking about it last night. I had a game in Eagle Mountain and then in Orem. And guess what? I stopped and got dinner at 2 different places. One at about 4:30 was more lunch in Eagle Mountain, and the other one was in Orem. And I thought, man, we're missing out on some of that revenue potential. I know that the school district here locally, I think, is doing more of that for the Super League teams, and would love to compete for those dollars and monetizing that if at all possible. The one thing is I looked at the budget, we're going a half time down in the recreation department, it looked like, on the FTE account. So I didn't know if that additional revenue would be that position that someone could really look at going after and trying to get those tournaments and super leagues and market to them. It's kind of the idea that came out of the fitness center study. One of the suggestions was to have someone that was kind of a part-time marketer that could be out there promoting and trying to reach out to different groups to increase money in that area, and I thought that might be something to look at in the recreation department as well. So, and that I think would help offset other costs of maintenance and operations of those facilities. The other one, so you guys can jump in if you have comments.
You know, I'll be honest, I got a comment to make. I had no idea that we were not using those two Little League baseball fields that are, I guess, our recreational leagues now are being used at Art Dye.
I think Rob's right on in terms of getting some marketing. It's interesting. American Fork has been at a dearth for open fields for soccer and baseball for so long. However, our Rotary Park is always full. Leagues, you know, starting the summer, that thing will be jammed up from high school games to Colt League to semi-pro and Roy Hobb leagues and stuff like that. And so if people know that we've got it, it's going to get used. And I really think the opportunity, and I know Derek and Jason and the team have worked very hard to be, and Randy and them have worked very hard to bring things in. But I think the more notoriety we get, and maybe, you know, we have something available at, you know, the ball field down in Rotary to kind of get the word out, because it's very popular. We're central to so many things, and that, so I agree. I think it would be really cool, and I know they're trying to do that. At the same time, one of the things that we've always talked about at Rotary and every place else, but it's difficult, is looking at everything from concessions to the things that, seeing those things that we can sell there. There's money to be made in those different areas. So I know that the recreation department is not overlooking that, but I think there's probably some things that we could do to really get some movement up at Art Dye.
You know, I went to a soccer game last week, and I turned the corner to go down to Art Dye, and for the first time I did see, I would say it's the Central League, which is just south of Beehive. The concessions was wide open, and there was a line in it. And that was just one night of that week. That would have been probably a Tuesday night as well. So
We don't have machine pitch or anything on those fields?
Not on, so they do it at Central Park, but not at Beehive, the north field. From what, I don't have a son in that league anymore, so that'd be the minors and the majors. But I was talking to another coach who, you know, this is feedback for Derek, and I can talk to him individually, but we use the pitching mounds there, and they're wood, and they're saying that's not as good as just natural dirt. So why are we forcing everything to Art Dye when we could maybe still utilize those fields that aren't being used? Maybe it's to centralize everything, I'm not sure. But even then, if those fields are open, those are things to look at. I've noticed, as Brad and I both have relatives that live right there, and Clark by those fields, so they're quite a bit. And you're seeing Super League teams that are practicing.
they're
there.
practicing for
And
sure.
they are practicing at Art Dye, and they're not paying anything. If we did have contracts and it was being used, then we get compensated. We don't have to have someone down there policing the fields, wondering if we have a contract or not in place. Mountain Ridge is just overwhelmed with soccer right now. And I'll be honest with you, those fields are horrible.
Oh, boy.
And our Art Dye Park is so much better. So when I look at it from a competitive standpoint, restrooms that are open to be able to be used, we put so much into that, I feel like we're really missing out. We've talked about this for years to monetize it, and now I feel like this is the year. But I do feel, and I'll have to talk to Derek again, as one customer of recreation, that they're feeling a little overworked right now. They've got a lot going on. And so when I look at the budget and I see a part-time position going down in hours, that makes me wonder, could we pay for that part-time position with additional revenue coming in, with someone just focused on getting those fields rented up? And maybe that's a better way to look at it, and it would pay for not only their time, but also maintenance, depending on what those contracts look like. I remember the David, I can't think of his last name, that runs North Utah County Soccer, came to us and said, hey, we really want to rent your fields, I just think we need to start engaging in such conversations and looking what that looks like. I think about Bamberger, I don't think is being utilized to its full potential. I look at Val Vista. So maybe the games could be played at Art Dye, but practices take place at these other fields that aren't being utilized, and it allows us to monetize that space. Because I look at, say, I don't know, Stacy, do you ever see Val Vista full all the time with people using all that grass?
Not right now.
Yeah.
In the fall, it's really busy
With flag football, they use it for that, which I'm glad to see that being used. But just looking at those different opportunities that exist at our different parks. Chipman's another one that probably could be used for soccer practices and then again games up there. So would love to see some kind of a plan. And to have that, I'd love that built into the budget. So if they do need that part-time help, I'm more apt to keep it in there if we can get the revenue to offset it.
We'll pull together a facility schedule and a use schedule for all the parks, so you guys can see how they're getting used and what open times are available. So,
And then the other one, and this was just more of a small item, is just our promotion item. I know we had it in the line budget for this year with changing logos and stuff, but I think there was 38,000 in there again for this year. Did I read that right? And wondered what that was for.
Let me just confirm, I believe we did keep the same marketing and promotional budget. Yes, we did.
And I guess I'm just wondering what's that used for?
a lot of that will be used for rebranding our vehicles. There's a lot of areas that we need to work on as far as the rebranding. Actually, 38,000 in the original budget wasn't really enough to do everything that we wanted to do. We just need to consistently drive forward, branding our city, branding our facilities, branding our vehicles, so that the city is proud of what we've got, and they can see that brand.
Okay. We talked about branding, I think, for like 5 years now. We went through lots of different studies, and so maybe I got lost in translation. I thought that at one point we said, hey, we're not going to go and spend money to transfer everything over. When we do get a new truck, then we will get the logo put on it. When we do these things, when we get new street signs, things of that nature. So is that still the plan, or are we moving forward with just relogoing as much as we can?
As much as we can, but not all at once. So not making a massive push to do everything at once, but as we can, we're going to bite off a little bit at a time and try and get what we can. Vehicles, quite honestly, are the city's biggest billboard. They drive around town every day. They're in every neighborhood. It's really important, I think, for our vehicles to be branded appropriately.
And then kind of with that, I know that we talked about uniforms and people wearing that across the board. I've gone into certain facilities and haven't seen that implemented yet. Didn't know if that was going to be part of that budget.
Yep.
Or.
Yep, that'll be
Okay.
part of it.
And that kind of leads into the next question on the fitness center. We talked about doing a study. I think it was like 20-something thousand to do the feasibility study. Is that the right term to use?
Yeah.
And I appreciate sending back the other study. Good to do a refresher. And as I read through there and read through Derek's report, and then just from my own personal experience, I don't think we fully implemented everything that we could maximize out of that study. Things really easy, like everyone having a name tag, being easily recognizable, or even better, they said having everyone in a uniform or a shirt, making sure those people at the front line are stopping and talking to people. They're just not walking through the fitness center and things of that nature. So for me, I would rather see that plan get fully implemented a little bit more than what it currently has been before I would be willing to spend more money, because those were things that were supposed to help us right now raise our revenues to shrink that. Subsidy. Thank you, Stacy. So for me, that would be something I would do, is maybe approve the budget conditioned on that one item that, we need to work on that a little bit more. But that's just me as one councilman. I feel like sometimes we do studies and we don't ever really fully implement everything. I'd love to see us pause, make sure we implement that, and then look at the next step.
Some of the things you mentioned, I'm surprised that you've noticed that they're not being implemented, because I've been told they are. For instance, having a logoed shirt. Everyone at the fitness center has a logoed shirt. And I know Derek's worked hard on that. having name tags, things like that, easy. And they do have those. Making sure people don't walk past the front desk. That's something that they do on a daily basis. So I think those are some of the things that maybe they're not noticed, but I do think that they are doing them. And can they do better?
Yeah.
Maybe so.
The last 4 weeks, I've been there every week after 6 PM, and no one's in a shirt. About half the staff is in a name tag, and I'll ask a question, and half the time they're not sure how to answer it.
Sure.
So I just feel like as a person that has been a customer of that, and reading that report, I would want to see that level of service go up a little bit more,
Yeah.
to where hopefully that increases our revenue and perception that we have there.
Part of what the study that's in the budget, it addresses more the long-term needs of space. And so this would be a facility study saying, hey, what do we need for the next 5, 10, 20 years? Things that we've talked about at the workshop. And so this study would build upon the CSA I call it the CSA co-report, which we sent out again. It would build on that and say, okay, what are our space needs going forward? What will the plan be? Do we expand into the parking area? Do we not expand? Do we look at a different facility? Do we, what are the options there? What are the options with the current building as far as physical space? And so it's a little bit different report than the CSA co-report. This would be more geared toward where are we going to be 5, 10, 20 years for physical space. That facility it really is, I don't think all components of the facility are maxed out, but there's several pieces of the facility that are maxed out, that we need more space. And it wasn't built for the growth that we're having now. We're beyond that. And our population projections continue to rise as the years go by. We're having really explosive growth. And the facility we need to be prepared and have an idea of what that facility needs to be in the future years. So that's what this study is for. It's really to build on the CSA co-report.
And I get that. I think it's an important thing to look at and plan for the future. For me, I really feel like we've got some studies that we really need to look at implementing before we move on to that next stage. And I would love to see how we could implement that. So if we take it over the next 6 months, I don't think 6 months is gonna hurt to delay that for 6 months and then start that study. I don't think there's anything real imminent on that. But if we can pause and really give that attention to get those things fully implemented, then as a council member, I would feel more comfortable going on to that next study. That leads to the next one, which is the downtown economic development study that we did. And again, I may have been remembering some things different, so I'd love feedback from fellow council members. I felt like at a few meetings we had where we talked about this, we talked about an economic development position here at the city. And I thought that we talked about supporting that as a crucial need for us. And I didn't see it in this year's budget. So I didn't know if that's something that we wanted to look at for this year. If it's not, again, I felt like at the retreat, it seemed like there was general consensus that we did want that.
Retreat this year?
Yeah.
We talked about a full-time economic development person.
I thought we did when we talked about the downtown. Now, maybe I've got meetings crossing or whatever, but I felt like at some point, we kind of all looked at each other and said, yeah, we felt like we needed to support a full-time economic development. Again, that's my perception. Maybe that was me reading comments differently. That's just why I wanted to bring it up to say, hey, was that something that we would like to take a look at as a council?
I'd have to go back and look, I don't recall that. But
I don't recall that.
But I don't know, I can't remember what I had for breakfast.
Is that something that we
I do, and I also don't recall. So you had an example. So.
Is that something we do want to look at doing or having implemented as part of the economic development plan, or is that something we didn't want to do?
I mean, in terms of downtown, what we can do for that is probably along the lines, in my mind, along the lines of what you're talking about with the fitness center. Seems to me like we have a ways to go before that would make sense for downtown. In general, resources we could put behind the chamber to be able to help attract business in on all of the areas. I think would make sense, but for downtown, I don't think we're geared up for that yet, in my opinion, to have a full-time position to be able to do
Yeah,
that.
I think we talked part-time to begin with, but again, I could be remembering it completely different, but I can see where you're coming from on that side.
I remember a conversation at some point, I don't know if it was with the council though, I actually think it might have been just me and Brad. At some point, I was discussing an economic development director, and I think for me, I don't understand all that goes into that position, and I think I would want to know more about what they would do day to day in order to assess how valuable it would be to the city.
And the reason I bring it up again is it's just these studies are done. I think we take a look at them, some of the things we may want to implement or not, but I just hate for it to be shelved and, you know, what's our goal, what are we working towards in that area? So that's just part of what I think would be there, so.
You know, if I could just speak to that I think that our downtown and our city is watched over pretty carefully right now with development. We know, I'll just give you an example, like a company like Amazon comes in and they already know what they've got. They do their homework. I have met with 2 different developers that know our downtown is on the radar. They know all about the opportunity zone, and they are, and I'm not saying we don't need to be better salesmen, but they are looking for opportunities to invest. And so maybe we need somebody that can help guide them, but they came and they knew exactly what they're starting to pick out blocks. And they're looking at things, and they love our downtown study and all that it is, and all the principles. In fact, their main focus is to transcend downtown. It's kind of one of their fortes that they're moving into, and that's the second one. Now, yeah, it's an hour meeting, but it tells me we're on the radar. They're seeing it, they understand it. Again, I think the opportunity zone is what magnifies it.
I would definitely agree with that. I think, as I remember the study, it was more of someone that was knowledgeable, that could be reached out to, that would know different property owners, understand what's going on in the area to be able to help answer it. I'm guessing here, but I'm guessing Adam's the first line of calls as people call in and say,
Probably.
hey, I'm looking to be here. And, we used to have 4 people in planning, we're now down to 2. Is that the best use of his time, or is that someone that understands economic development to a certain extent, to a certain point, to then hand off those calls, or whatever that may be? But sounds like more conversation to be had. I'd just love to have more of those conversations, maybe a work session down the road, just to look at, okay, economic development, what does that look like? I think we talked about the chamber once a year coming back and giving reports, so maybe that could be in conjunction with that. But just some thoughts as we were talking. Last but not least that I wanted to bring up was we had it down as a goal to study and look at and put into place a plan for property tax increase. I don't know that we've really had much of a discussion this year about that at all. I know that this is a tentative budget and it doesn't call for a property tax increase, but again, as I've looked at everything that we're looking to do inside this budget, I've felt this way for the last 4 years. I don't know how we stay on the current trajectory without keeping up with at least inflation. And so I would love to have a discussion about, a potential property tax increase this year. That's 2%, 4%, whatever that would be. Kind of along those same lines, back in October after I did a citizens group meeting, I sent an email out to everyone, minus Ryan, but talked a little bit about some of the conversations we had there about a road plan, raising taxes and putting it right in a special fund that would only be dedicated to roads. I know Mary mentioned you want to talk to each council member individually, but I know we haven't had much of a conversation together. I don't know if those individual meetings had happened or not. So as it being budget time, just looking at that and seeing, is that something that we want to look at or discuss for this year?
What do you think, council?
I'm intrigued from when I was appointed, whatever I did before I was appointed. Just Heidi Roback made a comment about paper as a possible option. That was news to me. Sounds like something that she's lobbied for over some time, perhaps when she was on the council before, I don't know, but I'd be interested in knowing where the city has gone with that, or how we approach that. One thing that is really important to me is that we don't find ourselves in the same situation where we did with irrigation water, where it's kicked down the road so far that now we're, somebody has to be the bad guy at some point. Now, I'm not suggesting tax increase, but at least having the conversation, maybe even more so just because I don't know what's being discussed. I'll use the ignorance key here, just because I don't know.
We call that the Kevin key. I think we used that
Let
for
me,
the first 4 years.
Let me just ask Sherilyn. Sherilyn, we are talking about the tentative budget. Do you feel like this is a better work session item? Because we do have room. We're going to talk about the CC1 downtown next on Tuesday. Do you feel like what we're talking about now is appropriate, or should it be held off for a council work session, which we can, again, we can put it on for.
If we're going to dive into the details, then I think it should be, my opinion is it should be properly noticed up for the public to have notice of the conversation points. We are talking about the budget, so if you want to have, general conversation about it, that's fine. But if we're going to dive into the details of everything, then it should be noticed up appropriately.
Okay. Well, let's stay general then, and then if we get into something that's not general, we'll ask you to let us
Very
know.
unique opinion. I just don't know where that line of general lies. The budget includes everything inside the city, so it'd be interesting. I'll watch and see where that interjection comes from general to not, but I think as far as revenues are concerned in the general fund and property tax increase, I think that would be something we could discuss. Now, we may not make a decision here tonight, but at least in the past, it seems like we've talked about it, and then it's like, oh, it's too late. We're already here. So I just want to try to avoid that conversation and make sure that it's something that we do have time to look at. There's things we want to have staff research and get back to us. Those are the things I think would be key to come out of this meeting for them to look at. So our next work session could be really effective.
I remember talking about that in our retreat, talking about what we might do and how we might approach a tax increase, or the proper terminology escapes me, where we actually are able to pin that, and so each year we get the revenue we need, and it doesn't go down on those years. So I would be in favor of having that. I think it's always one of the most difficult things. When Kevin said this was the hardest meeting you'll ever have, this is one more thing, Kevin, that's hard.
One more hardest thing ever, I know.
So I would be in favor of having a discussion on that, and being educated on what our timeframes are, what we need to do, how quickly we need to put it in place, and what we need to do in order to get it put in. So
That was one of the issues the council discussed at the retreat as a FY 2022 goal. And so that is on our strategic goals for FY 2022. A tax increase is not included in this budget. However, if we want to have that discussion in a work session, we definitely can do that and outline, the timelines that we would have to meet in order to do truth in taxation. So.
I totally agree. We ought to get it on the radar. If I'm remembering correctly, next week's work session is the joint.
We're going to have members of the planning commission. That's for one item. We're going to put it first.
How long do you anticipate
Probably,
that item?
you know what? I wouldn't dare give it a timeline. If I had to guess, I would say 45 minutes to an hour. Then we could add this.
I think this would take at least a solid hour. That's where I'm headed.
Okay.
I just, to me, that's one of the most important things we do. A little hyperbole there, but it is. And I don't want to have to be rushed in that discussion. Don't want people to feel they don't have time to express their opinions And I don't want to get halfway into it and then say, oh, whoops, we're out of time, and continue it the next work session. So I'm just mumbling, and I understand that, but that's just kind of some of my feelings. That's not saying I'm not for it. I think we need to seriously, very seriously look at it and discuss it. It's just the timing for me. It's the timing issue, and which work session or whatever. Thank you.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
So Mayor, if I could just summarize, just maybe for staff, the 6 items I had in relation to this that would love further discussion on in the future is recreation, part-time position and rental of fields, fitness study, this fitness center study and how we can maximize that before the next study, swag and promotion, downtown economic development position, property tax increase in the road plan, and park tax and general fund use with those extra dollars we have.
Okay.
Thanks, Mayor.
All right, did staff get that? And I guess, does that feel like, is that a consensus of the council? I don't know if we need a consensus. If one council member has questions, we can always, we'll provide the answers to all the council. Is that fair? So, okay. Any other questions regarding the tentative budget?
I have one, if I may. This little booklet, whatever you want to call it, proposed budget, page 4 is, I think, the best place to look at this. General fund, it shows an estimated this year of 28.758 million. Next year, 27.282. If I did the math on the calculator right, that's like $1.5 million decrease
So our.
in the revenue, and I'm just curious why we're projecting that.
We take a conservative approach. We like to.
I knew that was going to be the answer, but I want a better one.
Underestimate or overperform. So that's the approach we take. We look at revenues line by line, very detailed, and then usually take a percentage of that down, just because we want to be ultra conservative and not overspend.
I think that COVID is still an unknown. Yeah.
That's true. We did have CARES Act
Okay,
in
but go back to,
the estimated 21.
go ahead, sorry.
We have
Right, we
CARES
have the
Act
CARES
in this
Act that
current
came
year. We do not have the American Recovery Plan dollars in the budget. We will come back with those if, when we get those for a budget amendment.
But as I look at it, it's not a big amount, $110,000 or something less than the 2019-2020 budget, which I don't think COVID affected that much. And this brain's simple and doesn't work that good some days, but I don't understand how 2 years later you can spend less money and still run the budget when the cost of basically everything has gone up.
So to David's point, we have $1,067,000 in this year's revenues for CARES Act, and so that accounts for the majority of the difference
In the
in the new budget.
in the 21-22,
Correct.
but it's still less than 1920. The year 1920, 2019, yeah. Put the 20 in front of it, if you will. It's less than 2 years ago, if I'm reading it right.
We
Right.
had a
If I'm not,
portion.
we'll come have a visit.
Of course, yeah. No, I appreciate those questions. We had half of CARES Act in fiscal year 20 and half in
We did
fiscal
get
year
it in
21,
fiscal-
yeah.
Okay. That's
So
what I was
that's
wondering.
why,
Okay.
if you take that out, it's about $1 million each year.
Okay.
If I could jump in here real quick just on that CARES Act money. It's one question I did have is just, if we got about $1.5 million, is that what it was?
It was about 2.4 million
2 point,
over the 2
over
years.
the 2 years?
Between
Yeah,
the
I was
two.
looking at the one year, just this year we're in now. Did that free up more general fund money? Because if I remember right, we were paying first-time responders out of that. So my thought is that's freeing up general fund money.
That did, yes. We went to council last November with some budget amendments to spend the CARES Act. So it's all earmarked and accounted for, which whatever we don't spend by June 30 will carry forward into the next year.
So one thing I would love to see is if you could do a 10-year line graph for us on the general fund balance, because I'm guessing that fund balance went up because, or did we spend an extra $1 million somewhere else?
Yes, that will go up for this year. We'll have a little bit of an excess, and again, that will carry forward to the next year in this 22 budget, whatever is not spent.
So yeah, 10-year historical with maybe a guess. I know that's kind of hard to roll dice, but maybe if you kind of have a projection of where that fund balance would end on June 30th. that would be
Absolutely.
helpful. Thank you.
We are limited by the state to have only 25% of reserves in the general fund. Everything else needs to be moved over to capital.
Where are we now?
We will be at 25%.
We will be with this new money.
Yes.
Which is a great position to be in.
Yeah.
Where we are presenting expenses here, revenue here, we're dipping into our fund balance.
That, and we want to be careful with the economic uncertainties. There's a lot of unknowns, so we want to be careful when we project out for the next year or two.
I think at the time we were about 8% fund balance, so we at 25 was a very good position.
We've made very good progress on that, relatively short time, I think.
David, do you have anything to add? I think I'm just kind of reading that you got your mic ready and.
Yeah, I just, we've been very careful. We've budgeted very conservatively. And Anna has done a great job for us, and Kyle before her as well. Yes, several years ago, we were in that 8 to 10% fund balance range, which was not as comfortable as we wanted it. And so to move this direction and get to that 25% is a big achievement. And so thank you, City Council, for setting the goals the way you have and helping us get there. It does give us some flexibility in the future as we budget conservatively, and that is always our goal, is to have less expenditures than we have revenue, so that we're not coming back at the end of a budget year saying, hey, we're in trouble. We need to go take out of our reserve fund. That's not how we want to budget. But we want to make sure that our expenses are close to our revenues. We don't want to go too far one direction. But we're very conservative in our approach, and would rather receive more revenue than we have expenses. So that gives the council flexibility to use those fund balance dollars in some other way. So
I think one of the real surprises over the last year has been just our sales tax revenue. That was, to me, was very unpredictable. It took 2 or 3 months of a good trend to actually think that this is for real. So
I just want to make a comment too for anyone that's maybe listening and rewatching this when they're hearing potential property tax increase being discussed when we're talking 25% fund balance. Really, we got there from the shot in the arm of the stimulus package. It's one-time money that comes, and had a little bit of a windfall from a pandemic that happened from the federal government. So we put that in the storehouse for a rainy day, but that's not going to happen every year. And as we're looking at 3 additional officers, 5 firefighters, those are real hard costs that we need to be able to cover on an ongoing annual basis. And so for me, that's again why I'm looking at that, saying that's important, that we're not taking one-time money to budget, and I'm grateful we're not, but other municipalities and government entities will take one-time money to do a short-term gap. We can't fund operations on one-time money, so great. Thanks, Anna, for your hard work.
okay, any other questions on item number 5 on the tentative budget? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to make that motion to move to approve the tentative budget for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022, and to set a public hearing for the final budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. The hearing shall be set for Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021 at 7 p.m.
Okay. A motion by Councilmember Barnes,
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Shelton. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter?
Aye.
All right, I'm going to poll item number 6. It's not prepared, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mayor.
I have a motion by Councilmember Taylor. Second by Councilmember Shelton. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.